On the night of June 11th, 1993, cinema would change forever as the terrible lizards of our planet's past officially went from this to this. Audiences were blown away by Steven Spielberg's latest wizardry, and the box office showed it. Not only was it the highest-grossing movie ever at the time, it became an immediate cultural icon, imprinting dinosaurs on the public consciousness like never before.
But first, the hottest ticket in the Bay Area, Jurassic Park, has arrived.
It was fantastic. It was so scary.
It really was the most exciting film I've ever seen.
I think if not for the laugh lines in it, people would have had heart attacks.
But slowly and surely, the Jurassic Park franchise was destined to become another hallmark of the corporate ideals of the Hollywood franchise machine. The gap between what made money and what audiences actually appreciated was set to widen, and its catalyst was baked into the very first movie. Jurassic Park is essentially a survival story, a man versus nature tale. So we don't see a lot of the human antagonists, mostly profiteers wielding science for cash without care for the consequences, which usually comes back to bite them, quite literally. The dinosaurs are a potential safety and ecosystem nightmare, so they've been engineered on a private island, later expanded to a few islands. As one can see, the underlying framework of the story provides little room for expansion. Since the danger is only on the islands, our characters either have to get stuck on the islands, or the story must evolve into asking what would happen if dinosaurs were loosed on the mainland. While the first Jurassic Park movie is a groundbreaking and classic tale of science gone wrong, resulting in the main characters having to escape the island with dinosaurs run amok, the second manages to keep it somewhat fresh by escalating the plot to a potential of a stateside exhibit, running the risk of a dinosaur loose in the streets and not just on an island. Our characters must escape the island after getting stuck and contend with reckless dinosaur entrepreneurs trying to save the day when the plan inevitably backfires. Despite some fans regarding this as a more lowly sequel, the idea is at least well executed, and there's a lot of fun and action with the T-Rex running loose in San Diego at the end. And as a tribute to the giant monster flicks that pioneered these kinds of tales, Spielberg threw in a little Easter egg, one that can be found by translating the speech of the Japanese businessman running from the Tyrannosaur mayhem. But by the time we get to the third movie, the story circles back to the main characters being approached by someone with a blank check to coax them onto one of the islands. This inevitably leads the story to them getting stuck on an island with dinosaurs again. The only sprucing up they can do of the plot is to add new and more dangerous species of dinosaurs via the discovery that there are two islands with dinosaurs. There are still some thrills and interesting new dinosaurs, and it's not awful as a movie, but it's just not very original at this point. By now we've understood that this kind of franchise, while still providing thrill and action, isn't one that's interested in killing off the main characters. So after maybe the second movie, that sort of underlying tension in the story can no longer be counted on. By the time of the first installment of the sequel trilogy in 2015, Jurassic World, they go the rehash route by essentially remaking the first movie, with more characters stuck on an island with dinosaurs after a failed experiment of a dinosaur theme park. The second movie of this trilogy, Fallen Kingdom, mirrors previous installments by having someone with lots of money convince the main characters to get stuck on an island with dinosaurs again. In Fallen Kingdom, they still actually do some interesting things by having the bad guys capture dinosaurs for underground auctions to wealthy elites in a rare species black market, rather than for some parks. The plot still rhymes with all the other movies more or less heavily at times, but the climax involves the implication of hordes of dinosaurs running amok on the mainland, not just a singular T-Rex like the second movie. Thus, we're left on a sort of cliffhanger as to how this problem will be resolved in the third movie.
We've entered a new era. Welcome to Jurassic World.
At this point, the franchise has long exhausted basically all their options, so the possibility of dinosaurs, or at least more dinosaurs than just the T-Rex from the second movie, running wild on the mainland is kind of the final frontier. Either the dinosaurs are somehow contained or exterminated so that an ecological disaster is avoided, like the climax of the second movie, or the dinosaurs become the new normal for humanity. It's a bit fun to think of all the strange new situations, like a family spotting a velociraptor while camping, or these construction workers watching an apatosaurus lumber through. The third movie, however, manages to get their main characters stuck in a habitat with dinosaurs again, and then opts for the latter outcome as the dinosaurs become the new biological norm for the planet. It feels a bit open-ended and unresolved, especially as they barely touch on this issue, with basically just a short montage in the end, as a large part of the runtime is taken up by bugs. The climax also featured a battle in which the T-Rex had to fight a new mega predator, a recycled concept from previous installments. Needless to say, it wasn't quite up to what the fans were hoping for, but despite the diminishing creativity in the plots of these sequels, they have without a doubt proven one thing. Not one of the recent Jurassic World trilogy earned under $1 billion, and the average worldwide box office for each Jurassic Park and World movie is well over $1 billion. And if a franchise makes money, we're virtually guaranteed that studios will mine it until it's a desolate wasteland. They have no inspiration to change anything or try anything new. Audiences may not really love the newer films, but they manage to garner enough ticket sales out of curiosity and a parent's need to entertain dinosaur-crazy kids that studios will continue until profits fail. We've all seen how this strategy plays out. Curiosity will only putter along so far until mild disinterest festers into loathing, and fans have to be reminded that the great stories they once loved have been beaten down into an unrecognizable shell.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
And it seems this cycle is only set to continue, as the success of Jurassic World Dominion was too good for Universal to resist making yet another sequel that has now been released, Jurassic World Rebirth. The Jurassic trilogies also play into a larger trope, one that nearly every movie with dinosaurs plays into. Allow me to just show you. As we can see, the history of virtually all dinosaur films is basically a giant montage of humans screaming and running from giant bloodthirsty primordial monsters. I don't resent it in Jurassic Park because of the excellence of its story and execution of its visual effects. This trope has essentially turned dinosaurs into a one-trick pony film genre instead of being an interesting narrative tool. I don't always blame filmmakers for doing this, since dinosaurs are basically a perfect movie monster, mega-sized creatures of terror and wonder that feel like they should be pure sci-fi, but in fact actually existed. And each year gives us new discoveries that add new and interesting features to these monsters. But since it's clear that dinosaur movies make money, I don't think it's a stretch to say that there's room for expansion, to tell dinosaur-populated stories that aren't the same formula of running and screaming, and use these fantastical creatures as a unique setting for a greater story. Clearly, it's time to start getting creative and telling different kinds of dinosaur stories. What kinds, you may ask? Well, there's a number to choose from, like the story of the Bone Wars. This bitter rivalry between paleontologists Edward Drinker Cope and Charles Marsh, if done well as a drama, could serve as excellent Oscar bait for any studio, if not as a historical drama, then as a loose inspiration for a more explosive story. Much like an American dinosaur bone-hunting version of The Prestige, Cope and Marsh's relationship quickly turned sour after one publicly embarrassed the other by revealing that the other had placed a skull on the wrong end of a skeleton. This festered into a decades-long feud, trying to best each other in the discovery of new species and attempting to discredit each other by any means possible, legal or otherwise. Each man sent teams scouring the vast American West for dinosaur bones. At their dig sites, sometimes whatever miscellaneous fossils couldn't be hauled away were blown up with dynamite to prevent it getting into the hands of the rival paleontologist team. One time the rival team spotted each other searching for fossils and resorted to hurling stones at each other. If this tale was used as a historical fiction type of adaptation, one could imagine the plot escalating until each team resorts to deadly violence and bullets fly across the dinosaur fields. Ultimately, the historical rivalry was so bitter that on his deathbed, Marsh requested that his body be donated to science and that his brain was to be measured to see if it was larger than Cope's, since at the time people supposed brain size was a measure of intelligence. Nonetheless, science benefited from this pathetic decades-long rivalry, as well over 100 dinosaur species were discovered between them, including the iconic Stegosaurus and Brontosaurus. Another story of interest is that of Benjamin Waterhouse Hawkins and his fascinating and tragic journey attempting to bring dinosaurs to life in the public mind. It was he that gathered some of the chief paleontologists and scientists of his time, including Sir Richard Owen, who coined the name dinosaur, into an iconic setting for a dinner party. While hosting them inside an elaborate sculpture of an iguanodon, he advocated for the creation of an exhibit of sculptures of the various newly discovered species of dinosaurs. As these monster sculptures were created and shown to the public in an exhibition in 1854, it sent tidal waves through society as common citizens came face to face with the terrifying titans of Earth's past that nobody previously dreamed could have existed. Hawkins dreamed of bringing this wonder to America in New York and set about its creation. But after he ran afoul of a New York business mogul who was unhappy he couldn't get his hands on that land, Henchmen were sent to completely destroy all the giant sculptures, and to this day they lay buried somewhere in Central Park, very likely at this moment under the feet of an unsuspecting jogger. Along with those models, Hawkins' dream of an American exhibit hall were crushed. But although these early attempts at dinosaur reconstruction were wildly inaccurate, Hawkins' models were an important leap in paleontology's resurrection of the dinosaur. But finally, there's a different story with more universal appeal like Jurassic Park, without the same running and screaming claws and jaws formula. If you're a 90s kid, then maybe you're familiar with James Gurney's best-selling book series, Dinotopia.
From author James Gurney comes a new adventure in the land of Dinotopia.
As possibly the foremost scientific illustrator and paleo artist of our time, Gurney got his start artistically reconstructing archaeological sites for National Geographic. He then moved on to creating his own mysterious lost world through the series of graphic novels, calling it Dinotopia. Far from the typical fare of a bloody sci-fi thriller, Dinotopia boasts a far more whimsical and wonderful adventure. The first book follows the journey of a Victorian-era explorer, Arthur Dennison, and his son as they get shipwrecked onto an island with an undiscovered civilization where dinosaurs and humans live in peaceful coexistence. In this coexistence, Gurney produces loads of magical imagery, like the bread man with the Kentrosaurus, the Brachiosaurus Fire Brigade, and so much more. Each page of the novel is richly decorated with museum-quality paintings, providing rich imagery just ready to inspire a filmmaker's design. In fact, it seems it already has inspired filmmaking, some of the biggest films in history actually. In 1994, George Lucas met with development executives to discuss the possibility of bringing Dinotopia to life through a film adaptation. James Gurney was totally on board and lent Lucasfilm his artwork as a visual reference for the film. After the project eventually failed to proceed, despite the excitement of top industry VFX talent working on it, Lucas started writing The Phantom Menace a few months later. The final imagery of some scenes in The Phantom Menace is oddly familiar, to put it lightly. They were so familiar, in fact, that it created some buzz in the media discussing plagiarism, and Gurney received a personal phone call from Lucas to discuss the similarities. In the end, Gurney didn't take it to court or take it too personally, and remains a fan of Lucas's filmography. Aside from a mostly forgotten made-for-TV adaptation in the early 2000s, Dinotopia remains one of the most compelling among many dinosaur-related stories yet to be explored. Now is the perfect time for studios to take action and bring to life this charming and adventurous tale. This type of story has a very wide demographic, and adapting this 90s property is sure to have nostalgic adults introducing their kids to the movie or show. Or we can wait for the next blockbuster featuring main characters stuck on a dinosaur-infested island again. So I want to hear from you. Which of these tales would you want to see brought to life on the big screen? Let me know in the comment section. Okay, no. No. I can't do this. I will not do a generic YouTube outro today. I think it's time for... Ultimately, dinosaurs and cinema can be a perfect marriage, the most visceral medium meeting Earth's most awe-inspiring creatures. And we've only seen the beginning in Jurassic Park, not the end of its possibility. Dinosaurs can remind us that reality and fantasy aren't so different. And our strange little planet was never so ordinary.